Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
So there has been a lot of mention of burnout in the recent years, and like for myself as well, I've experienced burnout from work. So I know how it's something that sort of evolved from stress, and it easily goes unnoticed until it gets too late, and you realize you just haven't been taking proper care of yourself. Um, but like for those who are not really familiar with the term, what does burnout actually mean and what is it caused by?
Okay. So, I, as a wellness ambassador, we've worked at Inspire Yoga, we've seen a multitude of cases. Like we've had thousands of cases, and I've been able to kind of just draw trend lines in the clients that we're dealing with. So I will speak anecdotally from what I've seen in the last 10 years of my practice, be it in terms of private clients that we've worked it with, the corporate wellness plans that we put together, programs at schools, and also recently, being invited to consult to the government of Hong Kong. So, one of the major trend lines that I've seen is that burnout is an affliction for the high achievers
Mm,
because it's only when you care about your goal so much that you put it above yourself, right?
right.
You put it above your self-care. And so I think when it comes to burnout, it's almost that normalization of such a high achievement mindset that you've normalized disregarding for your own personal well-being, And so you might think, oh, I really should go for a run today, but I know I've got so much work, and that's just the way it is, and that's just the way I've been. I know I should do it, but I just don't have the time. And you've normalized that excuse of I just don't have the time, or I just have too much work, or there's just too much on my plate for me to do what I know I should be doing. So in a way, there's like a conflict of guilt as well, because let's face it, looking after yourself in the 21st century, it's not rocket science. We know what healthy food is, and we know what healthy food doesn't look like too, right? We know what deep quality rest should be, and we know what it isn't either, right? So it's not about an education. It's much more about a discipline. Like, what stops you from actually doing it? And so I want to just, maybe outline some of the red flags that I've seen in my practice when it comes to identifying burnout. Because I've been through that. I've been there. I used to be an investment banker, and I remember literally like fighting with myself. I literally used to, wish I could just hide in bed. And it took so much willpower for me to get started with my day. That sense of like something's holding me back, but yet I know I need to kind of set forth. So just that sense of feeling drained all the time. So even I think that was a big indication to me that even though I've had 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours of sleep, it doesn't matter. I'm waking up exhausted. So I think that's one of, a key indicators of what is your energy like? Where are you operating from? Are you operating from a place of lack? Like right now, I know that it's not good enough. And that's why I need to drag myself out and tick these things off my list, or, secure that contract before I can feel like I'm worth it, or before I feel like I deserve um, a sense of peace, or I deserve to take a breath, or I deserve to feel joyful. because until then, I'm going to put myself or my well being in the back burner, and I'll sacrifice for that because my mindset is so high on that achievement.
Mm.
So I think that energy, that's something that's a key indicator. So I'm talking about feeling lethargic, feeling fatigued. I'm talking about, just having a low mood. It doesn't matter. You're in a position where nothing really excites you. Your friends might say, "Hey, let's go for a movie." And you're just like, "I can't be bothered."
Mm.
Or, "Hey, like, let's go play tennis." And you might really enjoy the sport, but you just can't be bothered. That there's no will, there's no drive to do things that you would naturally volunteer to do and actually enjoy doing. And I'm sure in a lot of phases we've experienced that, right? We've experienced that, hey, this used to actually be super fun, but all of a sudden my energy level doesn't match any sense of activity. So even though I know in my mind it could be fun, but my body's just saying no, like I don't have the reserve. So that's another indication that, hey, if your levels of energy, your levels of enthusiasm are waning, then that's a red flag. Um, Suffering from fatigue can be interesting because the parameters for that are different for different people. Some people can be fatigued because they're suffering from insomnia, and so they're just not getting restful deep sleep. And some people can be fatigued, but they're sleeping totally fine, although their mind is always working. So they're not getting the deep sleep. So I wouldn't even say that it necessarily boils down to the number of hours you're getting. It's really about the quality of rest that you're getting.
Mm.
So if you're feeling fitful, if you're waking up with a to-do list in your mind, if you're waking up feeling like I've missed my deadline, all of those jarring feelings, that's indication that your mind is on overdrive and it's conditioned to be on overdrive. So it doesn't allow you that deep rest where you're switching off to recuperate from as well.
Yeah, I think it's partly to do with the culture as well. Like, especially in Asia, the culture is that you're expected to sort of work 24/7 almost.
Yeah,
And like you
yeah,
constantly have deadlines, especially if you're not self-employed. So it's not really under your control.
yeah,
And then there is just like those moments when you have an upcoming deadline and you know you have a lot of tasks to get done, and even if you're
yeah,
not feeling 100%, you have to get it done, right? I think
exactly.
that's the practical side of it.
I think also when we're in that route, we're then when it comes to our health, we're always trying to hack our health, or hack or have a quick fix
Shortcuts,
for our
exactly.
energy. Right? And
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, I need to get through this presentation. I'm just gonna down a coffee. I'm gonna just, get some sugar or just find quick fixes for our energy. But we all know what that does to us long term in terms
Yeah.
of the sustainability of our health and of our wellness and of our energy levels. We're literally just going on this roller coaster ride, feeling really depleted at the end of it.
Mm.
So I think it's also about, you know, being quite honest with yourself to say when is it enough, and being open and honest with your team that you're working in, um, because I think when we're all in that environment where we want to support each other, then we're willing to say, hey, yeah, I'll cover for you, go to the gym for an hour. Don't worry, I'm here. I'll cover for you so that you can do the same for me too. And so it doesn't mean that you're doing less. In fact, when you're being honest about where you are and how you feel, that support systems they come, and that's really when collaboration and being part of a bigger vision comes together so that we can support each other and still get through the same workload, if not more, because we've got more energy to drive our capacity. At the end of the day, we can't control the number of hours in a day, but we can control the energy we have in a day.
mm,
And if we're coming at our work with high energy, then of course we're much more effective and much more efficient at work. But if we're coming to work with low energy, well, then guess what? We're going to spend longer at work and we're going to get less done because our productivity or effectiveness is much lower, right? So, actually allowing yourself that parameter where you can refuel your tank will just sustain the business much further too.
yeah. And I think with like COVID-19, a lot of people are now starting to work from home as well. It's even more
Mm.
important because it's just so easy to not have a work-life boundary when you're working from home, and especially if that's
Oh,
what's
yeah.
expected from your company leaders, your team, to be like always accessible, or like if you're just trying to get things done within a short time, you just make yourself do that extra 1 or 2 hours at night. So I would like to talk a little bit about how, like, if people are working from home, especially like for your team, how can you help them like prevent burnout? Because I don't know, statistically I've seen like there's been a global increase of like stress and burnout for the over the last year, I guess partially because of all the uncertainties and partially just because working from home does require more effort in self-care and setting boundaries to maintain your
Yeah.
well-being, and a lot of people
Mm.
aren't necessarily aware of that or have the they might not be working for companies that are necessarily aware of like
Right.
what their employees are going through.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is when I would really talk into that discipline,
Mm,
and that commitment, and that it really doesn't require a massive shift in terms of how we operate. It's much more about creating micro habits,
mm,
you know, um, and boundaries, because as you say, there aren't any physical boundaries now. I was doing a presentation yesterday, and 8:30, my little son at 4 years old walks through the door. And so, it's such a blurred line, right? Or, we might think, okay, I'm just going to have dinner with the kids and help them with their homework, because obviously we're just doing distance learning now too. And then it's so much easier to say, okay, after dinner, I'll log on and I'll finish off my work. So again, it's not like, okay, there's a separation. I've left the office. That means I've left it and I'm
yeah.
not going to go back to finish off that one email. But if when we're home, we have that option, right? But then having that optionality gives us so much more responsibility of when we exercise it. So, I would really recommend like having some sort of a set office hours. So, when do you really need to be available for your team, for meetings, for conference calls? Then block out, say, those 3, 4, 5 hours. And then everything else, replying to emails, putting together um, your invoicing, all of the other stuff that you're doing, that can be almost on flexi time,
Mm,
because it doesn't require that face to face collaboration. So I would say, okay, prioritize your workload. What actually gives you the highest growth in terms of business? That's where you would lock in those hours.
mhm,
And so when you've locked in those hours, you know that that's non-negotiable. So as a company, this is what we agree. This is something that we want to be available for each other, because this is going to really generate revenue. And
mm,
then everything else that's supportive, the support roles, that can work around those the core hours, so that we can choose which times suit us, because now we're working on different domains and different families and different houses. It's very different in terms of the setups, right? So appreciating the idiosyncrasies of working from home and different challenges that might have on different people. I think also, when we talk about burnout, it's really that a state where we have normalized a high stress level, right? Stress gets you going, But then it's that fight or flight mechanism, right? So it spirals and it really allows and propels for action, gets you through, about, and then you taper down and you come back to restorative, you come back to a restful state. But what we're seeing a lot now is chronic stress. So there's never a peak and a drop. You're sustaining that high stress levels. And so when you've sustained it high enough for long enough, you're going to eventually burn out, right?
Mm.
And so just in terms of the classification in terms of relationship between stress and burnout, it's a chronic buildup. It hasn't just happened overnight. It's
Sure.
because you've normalized it, or you've allowed that stress level to kind of weigh you down or pressurize you. And
Mm.
so initially, you're going to also feel tension, tightness around your body, your shoulders, your neck. That's primarily where the back, where you feel the stress calcify. You'll see your mood affected. You might feel irritable. You might feel lethargic, and then eventually it also affects our immunity. You'll feel that you can catch a cold much faster. You're less resilient. uh, People have digestive issues too, because the gut and the brain is so connected. So your ability to process cognitively and your ability to process physically are very, very interlinked. So that's something that I've seen. So being able to also create these micro habits of de-stressing in your day is so important. So even if it's dedicating 20 minutes a day to something that you enjoy, whether it's going for a run, whether it's, rolling out your mat and doing some stretches, whether it's some breathing exercises, a meditation, whatever it is, to actually feel like you can breathe deeper, you can feel more relaxed, you're calmer, you're clearer in your mind, then doing that at least once a day. I would say, I would recommend in this time where it's almost inevitable that we're all operating from a stress mode, because if you think of what stress is, its base emotion is fear, right? And so in a situation like coronavirus, we are operating out of fear because it's uncertain. And
Mm.
the brain is wired to think of the worst case scenario. So when you see, breaking news, record high cases, you're thinking, oh my gosh, what if I get it? What if my parents get it? What if my kids get it? Right? Like, you're thinking of the worst case scenario because the brain is wired to pay almost 7 times more attention to negative than the positive. And so when we're thinking about something, there's a big connection between our thoughts and our physiological response. So, just imagine like watching a movie. You're watching a movie and it's like a lot of suspense and a lot of drama. Have you noticed that your heart is racing? Right? Have you noticed that you're breathing a bit heavier? Right? Nothing's happening to you, but through your imagination, what you're seeing, your body is experiencing it as if it's living it, right? And so take that same concept and apply it to your thought patterns, right? How is your body responding to your thought patterns? And most of the time, let's face it, we're entertaining negative thoughts much more than we are positive thoughts, right? So our body is like, wait, hold up. I'm going through this. This is now coming. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be a terrible situation. And you're having to almost wade through this uncertainty expecting the worst. So in this case, that's why, I'm leading free meditations. That's why I'm doing so much to support the community, to say, all right, let's switch off from the mind. Let's come back into the body. And when we realize we can sit in the present, that's when we realize everything is actually okay.
Mm.
But the moment we're in our mind, we're extrapolating into the future
Mhm.
or into the past, right? Like, oh, all these countries have gone into lockdown. Um, hospitals are overflowing right now, like all these things that we're just extrapolating from
Mhm.
either the past or the future. And if you think about it, if our mind is really kind of oscillating between past and future, then where's our locus of control? Can we do anything to change yesterday? Can we do anything to change tomorrow? No, we can only do something to change right now. Our locus of control is only for right now, right? And so that's why even when we do mindfulness, so much is around the breath, because we can't breathe for tomorrow, or we can't breathe for yesterday or an hour ago. So when we bring our sense of control back to right now, back to this very breath, then we're able to feel a sense of release, a sense of calm. So
Mm.
even if you just take, say, 5, 10 minutes in your day to say, I'm going to just notice my breath. I'm going to just do some breathing exercises. Do it at work, do it at your desk, do it in front of your laptop. It doesn't matter. You don't need to change your physical setting. You don't need to, go for a hike or spend an hour outside. You just do it because you can be consciously aware of it and switch from the future and the past to right now when you're present, right? And when you're aware of that. And so the quickest way of being aware of that is simply by noticing your breath. So I would say micro schedule in just a couple of breathing exercises, 2, 3 times a day. And that will, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling um, the uncertainty of the situation is kind of grappling at you, then you can come back to your breath and realize that the mind is just going to roll and wherever it goes, but I can also have the responsibility and the ownership to bring it right now and switch off from those thoughts.
Mm. Yes, it's fantastic what you're doing for the public with the free meditations and yoga workshops. And I know that apart from like you're a pioneer in personalized yoga, but you also do a lot of work in the corporate wellness space. Do you have some examples of how it has improved like team performances and business results for companies that you've worked with in the past? I think just like from my observations, it seems like I think corporate wellness is a pretty strong industry. It's been growing for the last few years because people are increasingly becoming aware of its importance. But in the
Yeah.
world of like startups or even SMEs, oftentimes it's just seen as not the priority because it's not your primary revenue generator, and like it becomes like last of people's concern. And in many ways, those like when you're a startup or entrepreneur, that's actually when you need the most self-care and like priority on well-being, because it's so much easier to get burnout when you're the one or you have a few people who are doing everything. So yeah, I was wondering
Yeah.
how has your work or like wellness plans for companies impacted their results? Has it made a dramatic
Mhm.
difference to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we like to focus with our corporate programs is, how can we heighten productivity? How can we heighten resilience? Um, and that really comes from a place of first understanding what the status quo is, first understanding what our corporate culture is indoctrinating. Um, and so if it is kind of keeping you at the edge, then of course people are going to feel that sense of stress because there's an uncertainty, when it comes to job stability. Um, and so being in a position where there's an open communication can only happen when there's an awareness of what's actually going on. And we've seen that even in these times where it's been so stressful, that teams that really come together and strive and thrive in these circumstances are because they have a really strong network of collaboration and support. So there needs to be uh, an ecosystem of trust and honesty and awareness, And so I think a big part of that is just being able to desensitize mental health and be able to talk about it openly of what we're going through and how we're feeling. Because unless and until we're open about how we feel, can we get the support that we're looking for, right?
Mm.
And so, a lot of the times I've worked with clients where they are dealing with so much and they are dealing with mental health issues, but there's such a stigma around it that hiding and pretending and wearing a mask that, yeah, I've got this bravado that everything is fine, that's what ends up being the heaviest on them. That's what ends up eating away their energy levels, their levels of productivity, and also their levels of being able to be a team member, because a team member not only you know, gives, but they also receive, right? So being able to meet the deadlines, but also saying, hey, listen, this is when I need some support, and work at it in a much more networked effect. So I've definitely seen that communication really increase, where there's a support system that transcends a physical space, because obviously now working remotely, you're almost detached from your team. You're detached from your workspace. So you might pick up on, oh, okay, the person next to me seems like they're struggling at the moment. But if that person is just emailing you from across the island, then you wouldn't even pick up on that, right?
Mm.
So being able to have weekly discussions, support groups set up. We've also introduced um, like morning meditations. So even though everyone's spread out, when you come together with the same intention in your mind space, then you're much willing to collaborate, to support, to be compassionate with each other as well. So I think that's really helped. Also a sense of resilience where it's about understanding how we can meet our needs in different ways. For some people, they they need to have some quiet time to restore. For other people, they need that interaction. They need to feel like I can connect with you to restore. And so how can we identify where we sit on the spectrum, what we need from it? Because not everyone will take to journaling and not everyone will take to networking,
Yeah.
right? And so being able to understand what it is that I need and how can I ask for it? How can I uh, receive that and know that it's okay? Because I've I've literally, even in my on the private side, I've worked with tycoons, I've worked with CEOs in Hong Kong, where you look at them on the outside and they have everything that we would strive for, right? They have their chauffeur driven cars, they have the designer clothes, they have the houses at the peak. But why are they coming to me? They're coming to me for anxiety. They're coming to me for depression. And so it's also understanding how, I have this goal and I have this achievement, but will it tick all the boxes that I'm really after in my heart? And does it really lead to joy? Because once we're in that very rigorously ambitious mindset, then we're always striving. And so when we're always striving, the moment we get something, what do we think? Okay, what's next? How do we grow further? How do we get to the bigger bonus? How do we, you're always upward comparing yourself. And so when you're doing that, then you can't celebrate the moments.
Mm.
And so you're not creating from a sense of contentment. You're not creating from a sense of abundance of, okay, I have so much and I want to share it. You're coming from a place of scarcity. You're still coming, even though you have so much, you're always thinking, well, what if my competitor outruns me, right? What if they do something further? And so it's not about what I can do to my best. You've literally got your eye on the person next to you to outperform your competitor. And so when when your focus is not on where I can do my best at, where my talent is, and how I can drive my talent, and instead you're worried about securing job or securing growth in your industry because you're scared of another incumbent, then you kind of you lose out on a lot of talent. And so I've seen this. I often quote even um, with tech firms, a lot of them will kind of outplay each other in micro nuances, and then there'll be um, a silent horse that'll just come and overtake the market capitalization.
Disruptive
Like we've seen,
startups.
yeah, and we've seen that even with Apple.
Right.
So that's something that I like to say. If you're doing something that you're good at, if you're doing something you're talented at, then that work should give you energy. That work should be, the work itself should be fulfilling. If the work itself isn't fulfilling, if the work itself is draining because you're so focused on the result of the work, right? And your eye is on the future, it's not on the present, right? Then you're at a lack. Then it's draining. So how do we change that focus point? How do we recalibrate so that we can find joy in the present moment? Because when we find joy in the present moment, then that's what grows and that's what accelerates. And so we've really worked with a lot of corporate programs on exactly that. Being able to take action around the positive values. So things that, they enjoy, to really create momentum and mobilize that sense of joy, to not only kind of note down the things we're thankful for in our mind, but to put action behind it, to go and tell somebody, to put it in an email every day, to put it in conversation. Oh, that itself is self-fulfilling. That will, in terms of the resilience spectrum, that will start creating a positive spiral on your energy, because you're not going from complaining and you're not going into a place of self-sabotage and feeling powerless. Instead, you're going from a sense of gratitude, seeing what's good out there and creating and attracting more of that in your workspace, in your talent pool, and in your business.
Right. Yeah, that's actually much better for your team bonding and communication as well if you regularly practice gratitude and appreciation for your teammates. Um,
Absolutely. And also, I think sometimes, especially as entrepreneurs, we can be our harshest critic, right? If you think about the mental chatter, we will pick up on the things that we messed up on much more than all the glories to celebrate, right? Or all the business that we've created, all the jobs that we're sustaining.
sure.
So even in terms of the way of the mind, knowing that we pick up more on the negative is something that we need to be cognizant about and aware about. And then also have that ownership to switch out from there and to come back to just being rather than thinking. I mean, say you go out and you do this presentation, and 9 people come up and say, Tracy, that was amazing, I learned so much, I'm really going to implement those points. You've really changed the way I think about how to structure my small business and how to create this startup. And then there's one person who comes up and it's like, you know what, I know everything you just said, I don't think it's got any value, you just wasted an hour of my time. 3 days later, are you going to remember any of the positive comments? Or are you going to have that one criticism roll through your mind again and again and again? Right? We will relive and recall those negative criticisms so much more than we do or we pay attention to the praise that we get, right? And if we ourselves are judging our own performance all the time, then we can be very harsh in that criticism.
Sure.
So that's why it's very important, even especially for the entrepreneur, to come out of the mind, to stop that mental chatter, to stop that rumination, and give yourself permission to recalibrate, um, because otherwise we're only going to replay our failures, right? And we all know as entrepreneurs, you know, failure is a prerequisite for success.
Mm.
It's only how many times you're willing to get up off the floor is how far you're going to go, right? But if you're beating up yourself about every time you slip, then the chances of you even getting up is diminished, right? So one of the things that I like to say, especially to the team leaders, especially to the revenue generators, especially to to the ones who are carrying a lot of the pressure when it comes to the business and the growth of the business, is the importance of forgiveness. And that really can't be emphasized more, because we can't put these flowery the flowery language on. We can't put on these veils of positivity if inside we're holding on to resentment for
Sure.
ourselves, for others, or for the situation. We might not even you might not even like, I have nothing to forgive, but sometimes even thinking like, I can't believe I'm sitting in this position where I'm stuck in this global pandemic. Like, why is this happening? What is, you know, everything has stopped. It's unprecedented. I'm unable to even go to a physical meeting. Like, what is going on, right? What are you doing? Right? You're creating such a sense of victimization, right? It's not that there's a person that's attacking you, but you're being resentful of your present moment. You're being resentful of the situation, right? I mean, even in normal conversation, you could just like, oh yeah, the weather is so terrible. What are we going to do? Again, what is that complaining mindset doing? You're creating just these uh, nuanced resentment that ends up pulling away from your sense of power, pulling away from that freedom, that lightness, where you can say, whatever, I can pick up and I can pivot. I can pick up, I can adjust, I can accommodate, I can adapt. And it's really those businesses who can adapt, adjust, accommodate, and those businesses that are stuck in the past. This is the success gap, right? You'll see in all time, it's those that who can pivot, who can change. And this is resilience. Resilience is driving down the same road again and again, knowing your route. And one day you're faced with a roadblock, right? So if you're just going to use perseverance, if you're just going to use willpower and drive, you're just going to drive right into that ditch, right? You're actually going to dig yourself into a hole.
Yeah.
But when you can see the roadblock and you can re-navigate, you can recalibrate on your GPS, you can find a different route to get to your destination, then that's resilience. And that's the secret of success. So whether it's a multinational investment bank or a 5-person startup, in terms of how the secrets and in terms of the threads of success, it really comes to how the person, how the leaders connect with their own mindset, and how do they sculpt the vision, and then how do they lead. And if it isn't by example, people are going to see right through you, right?
Yep.
So being able to practice forgiveness. And when you can practice forgiveness with yourself, that's only then can you practice forgiveness with others. Right?
mm,
Otherwise, you're going to be that boss who will, have the chip on their shoulder and also be very, very authoritarian with how they treat their subordinates.
mhm,
So, in terms of how we've adjusted now, there's a whole paradigm of leadership, which is called servant leadership, where you're coming into a place saying, "How can I help you?" Because only when you feel full, you feel content, you feel confident in what you can bring to the table, can you offer support to somebody else, right?
sure. Yes, a lot of the responsibilities do fall on the company leaders, if not the CEO. I think
Yeah,
that's also where the big challenges are because, from a lot of research that I've seen, it's like you would get the majority of employees saying there is a problem with stress and burnout, or that their emotional well-being aren't very well taken care of, especially now with the remote working.
yeah,
Whereas with like there's a much smaller percentage of leaders who are aware of that same problem or challenge,
yeah,
and so that, yeah, there is like a much
yeah.
I guess there's a lot
Or
of work
also,
in really getting leaders to understand the role they play, and also the impact it has on their business results, both
yeah,
in the sense like if they don't take action, it will cost them a lot of money, in that people won't be productive, they will take sick leave or even quit after you've spent
right,
a lot of money training them. And then on the
yeah,
positive side, there is so much to gain as well, like when your team is like really performing at their full potential and are motivated to give their best, you would find your business like growth going so much more smoothly as well.
definitely. And I think it takes courage on the side of the leader, and that's something that at Inspire Yoga we really start to inculcate in the C suite. Are you willing to shine a light on something that's pretty dark,
Mm,
right? Are you willing, if you're not willing to hear the answer to how are you, how
mhm.
are you really coping? Then you're not going to ask it, right? And so you're going to operate with blinders on.
Yeah.
And so it takes that courage to be aware of your own personal journey, and so that you can be aware and you can support and lead and guide those in your team.
Mhm,
Um, in terms of cost structure, whether it's absenteeism, whether it's productivity, whether it's, I mean, right now, it's even just retention, the costs of retention, the costs of um, retraining, rehiring, all of that. These are major for a business to sustain itself, right? And you don't want to be draining out your talent because they don't have their personal needs addressed. At
mm,
the end of the day, a business is only as strong as its people,
mm,
right? So seeing that it's a collection of personal well being for us to have a collective strength, a workforce that really can bounce back from any adversity that we face. And so when we have strong individuals and we have um, individuals that invest in their wellness and invest in creating that sense of well-being, then how much more can they drive forward? How much more can they support and bring together these values of longevity to the business?
How would you say, like, what's the best way to convince a company leader that it's not just a waste of time, but a worthy investment to put together a workplace wellness program, or even start with small steps like having maybe healthy snacks at work, maybe occasional mindfulness or yoga workshops, when they probably feel like that is down to you, like, it's your own responsibility as an employee?
I would just say, well, how is it going for you so far? Right? Like, look at your opportunity cost,
Mm,
right? So if you continue on the path that you're on, what is its trajectory? Will people who are currently employed jump ship the moment they get an offer that's even matched, right? And so if you don't have a happy workforce, you don't have a loyal workforce. And this is your talent pool. This is the generators. So
Mm.
it also comes from the perspective of, really deeply looking into the paradigm of why we do what we do, And so you might say, oh, okay, this like wellness activity, so superfluous, doesn't really make any difference to bottom line. Okay, you can take it like that. But then you say, why do we do what we do? So if I invest in my workforce and make sure that they're happy and they're healthy, what what is the ROI to the business? Your ROI is that your workforce is happier, they're more productive, right? They're healthier. So of course you've already ticked off productivity, absenteeism, but a big factor is that they're actually happy to come to work,
Mm.
right? Now, if they're happy to come to work, what does that do to the business, right? Who's actually facing your clients? Your employees are facing your clients, right? And so if you have a happy customer service representative versus a grumpy, exhausted customer service representative, where is the loyalty of your clients? Don't you think your clients will be much more loyal to your company when they interact with happier service staff? So you can see immediately that there's a one-to-one correlation between a happy workforce and a happy client base. Now, you go into any business and say, are you willing to risk your clients walking away? Right? If you're willing to risk your employees walking away because they're burnt out and stressed out, then guess what? That'll have an immediate knock on effect to how they treat your clients and those people that pay you and those people that determine how big your business grows. So it's in the business interest to look after their staff so that the people that pay the business are happy, are well looked after, are served at their optimal because the staff is feeling well looked after, contained, and served at their optimal.
Have you seen like a clear transformation since you start working with companies, whether it's to create a workplace wellness plan or like offer a series of yoga and meditation workshops?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had interventions at some really big corporations um, um, to come on board because there was across the board there was a lot of anxiety
Mm.
and cases of really high stress. So once we came in and brought the wellness package together, brought in daily practices of mindfulness, of breath work, brought in daily practices of movement, then people were able to really feel their own individual energy levels rise, and they were able to then look into their own current behaviors and notice, okay, what's serving me and what's not serving me. Because once you have the value that I'm not good enough, then what happens? You're going to choose behaviors that feed that value, right? You're going to choose behaviors that will perpetuate that value, right? So you're going to complain, you're going to compare, you're going to feel powerless, right? And so then the results is that you will experience a low level of vitality, be it you're not the body weight you want to be it your health is not in the condition you want it to be it your mood is not where you want it to be, because it's all stemming from I'm not good enough, right?
Mm.
So it then transcends upwards to the behaviors and the results. So when we're able with the mindfulness to work with that value, that I am fully capable, that I am very supported, and that I'm very competent, then everything they're going to do will start to engender behaviors that reflects the sense of confidence, right? That sense of compassion. And then, of course, then you're feeling the vitality, you're feeling the surge. When you're able to help someone and it's a meaningful impact, don't you immediately feel good? And so then we start with the personal individual level, but when done on a group basis, on a corporate level, what we establish is a collective accountability. So it's not so much that I'm now responsible, to maintain my energy levels and to do my meditation, but now I'm responsible that you're at your highest because I know you can be. And I'm coming from a place of support and compassion and confidence rather than a place of insecurity and insensitivity where I'm happy that you're down because then relatively I look better.
Mhm.
So we've been able to really incite that change where anxiety, stress levels were markedly lower, where they were all um, committed, and disciplined to do a program, a daily practice for almost 4 months, and once you create that habit in a lifestyle, then it'll serve you for the lifetime because it's a habit, right? It no longer requires discipline to do it. It almost is something that's self-fulfilling because you've created that habit and it feels like it's part of your routine.
Mm.
So I have affirmation when it comes to healthy eating, to healthy language, to healthy thought patterns, to healthy, mindfulness practices. So all of these things where we're looking at a 360 view on not only physical health, but mental health and emotional health.
Mm.
How can we clearly communicate? How can I also forgive, things that haven't gone my way? How can I support each other? So we even, created mental health support groups within the company so that people feel like, hey, I can exercise my muscle of empathy. I can know that we're in this together. It's not that I have to wear a mask and pretend everything is fine and feel like I need to be concealed because otherwise people will see through me and they'll see that I'm actually struggling. When I see that, hey, we're all in this together and it's difficult for all of us, that's where we get our strength, right? Because then we can say, let's be more authentic. Let's allow this place to be a bit more vulnerable so that we can strengthen together in how we support each other and making sure that we're held accountable on all the positive psychology practices that we've said we're going to do. Now we can say we're going to do it and actually doing it is two different things. But when you have an ecosystem of accountability, then actually accomplishing that and actually achieving it and realizing those goals becomes so much easier because you have this blanket of support within the corporate structure.
Mm. So when you start a workplace wellness plan, particularly if you're a startup or SME business, how would you recommend them to go about structuring this plan, or is it better to work with a consultant on it?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I started Inspire Yoga 10 years ago was I didn't see wellness having an individual access point,
Mm.
you know? Um, you know, back then it was like predominantly yoga. And so if you're not already a practicing yogi, then do you really feel confident to go into a studio and keep up with a class if you're already suffering from back pain? right? And so what I wanted to do is let me look at what you need so we can fill in those gaps
Hmm.
so that it's relevant um to your environment, be it your physical environment, be it your corporate environment, but really talk into the individual pain points. So I think we all, we often start with a consultation where we understand, you know, what are you struggling with so that I know how to support you.
Mm.
And then we have programs that we can facilitate that are online or offline, that are more coaching or more pragmatic. We also have, crash courses where there's like a 4-day intensive breathing workshop. And so you learn it for 2 hours a day for 4 days. And then you've got the tool. It's not that we're creating a dependence on wellness because you need to get to the studio or you need to sign on to this portal. It's now you have the tool, you have the secret sauce. If you want to change, it's now up to you to action that, and use these tools that we're facilitating. So that's something that we do when it comes to the corporate wellness space, and how we work with different budgets, different company sizes, and different pain points that people are affected by.
Hmm. Would you recommend, like, as a starting point, is it a good idea to start appointing like a wellness ambassador?
You know what? I personally think when it comes to startups and SMEs, the wellness ambassador is the CEO,
Mm.
because
You have to role
that
model the
vision.
behavior.
Absolutely. It has to be a top-down effect. It
Yeah.
has to trickle from leadership,
Yeah.
because the leader can be doing one thing, they can be setting the budget, they can be setting the goals, and the
Mm.
wellness ambassador can be siloed somewhere else. So where's the value alignment then,
Sure.
So it has to come from leadership. It has to come from those who are the decision makers, because when they can decide it is worth you spending 20 minutes a day to invest in your personal wellness,
Mm.
because I see the impact and the forward roll on effect on the business, then I will make sure that we diarize that, and that it's something that we can do firm wide. And I've seen that, I've seen the difference when I work alongside um, the HR teams, and when I work alongside the HR teams who are plugged in with the MDs and the CEOs.
Mhm.
The amount of buy-in and the amount of adoption rate. Because there's no point. I'm not here to just sell you a package and walk out the door. Okay, I've got my revenue, like my bills are paid. It's about creating change,
Mhm.
right? So it's not about having the tools, it's about actually using them,
Absolutely.
right? And so when the leaders see the importance of the usage and the importance of the adoption, then um, then they're going to be leading by example, right? And then they're going to be able to instill behavioral changes within their team to really mirror that value.
Do you
Yeah.
have any kind of practical tips on how one can be more mindful and also improve your focus and sleep? I
Yeah.
think that
Loads
is
of tips.
like the
That's a
majority.
common toad. Um,
That's
yeah.
the
Okay.
majority of complaint of the average team employee or team member out there.
Okay. So what I'll do is should I walk you through a breathing exercise that I feel really makes a huge difference?
Yeah, I think it would be great if you can show us some example, just very simple, short exercises you can even do at your desk. So, what
Yeah.
should you do if
Perfect.
you feel overwhelmed, and also maybe something if that will help alleviate some of the back and neck and shoulder pain that comes from sitting for a long time at a desk.
Okay. So I'll work with the breath exercise, and then I'm just cognizant of the time. So
Yes.
we'll work with some movement base as well. Um, so what I'm going to teach you today is called alternative nostril breathing or
Mm.
Nari Shodhana. It's a pranayama. So do you know what prana means?
Breathing.
So yeah, so prana is kind of like your vital energy flow.
Mm.
So it's a little bit more subtle than the breath. Think of it like chi in
Like Tai
traditional
Chi.
Chinese. Yeah, you know the chi, the flow of
Yes.
energy. So that's what prana means. And so pranayama is how we can optimize the flow of energy.
Mm.
So this is one pranayama or one breathing exercise that I do every single day because what it does is it creates a hemispheric balance. It's amazing for the heart rate and it's also amazing for the hemispheric balance in your brain. So it's around, it works with the passage of air around the left and the right nostril. So
Mm.
the left nostril is connected to the left hemisphere of the brain. So, and the right nostril is connected to the right hemisphere of the brain. So we're working around the logic centers, the analytical centers, right? But then we're also working around creating balance with the creative centers, with the active energy and the passive energy, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So we're allowing, remember when we talked about that spike in stress and then
Mm.
how we then normalize being at chronic stress levels, right? So this helps to bring back that sense of balance. So it brings back from a heightened maybe aggressive or highly active, analytical, stressful mind back into a permission to feel calm, to feel centered. And we can't think about like when you're trying to multitask and do 100 things at the same time. Are you feeling focused? Are you feeling centered? Right? You might think you're being really productive, but you're literally just exhausting yourself running on a hamster wheel. You're not
Yes.
really getting too far, but you're just doing so many things
Yes.
without that sense of centeredness and that focus.
Mm.
So this is exactly what is inculcated through this breathing exercise, where we create the balance in our energy so that we can adopt a much more centered, focused, and clear mind. You know, without being bogged down by our tasks. Because when we are bogged down by our tasks, where are we in our minds? We're immediately in the future. We're not centered. We can only be centered and focused when we're in the present, right? We spoke about that. So coming out of that sense of frantic movement into a much more effective action. So I'm going to go through the technique and then we can do it together. Yeah. So first, you bring your left hand together. You bring your left hand up and you bring your first finger and your thumb in a little circle. Okay. So you connect the thumb and the first finger and then you place it palm facing up onto your lap, onto your left knee.
Mhm.
Or yeah, left knee. So even if you're sitting at a desk, just on your left knee below the desk, you can you want to sit with your spine erect, so sit nice and tall and feel free to use a backrest, you know. Just make sure that your hips are at the back of your seat so that your back is fully supported and nice and
Right.
long. So you're not like slouched forwards
Mhm.
on your in front of your desk, yeah? And then you take your right hand, you bring your first two fingers together and the last two fingers. Okay, so you're going to slightly bend the last two fingers of your right hand, and this is where we're going to control the left and right airflow passage. So the first two fingers are at the eyebrow center. This
Mhm.
is our Ajna chakra, which is the energy that determines focus. Yeah. So
Mhm.
you want to bring your fingers here, especially if you're feeling scattered. You want to bring your fingers at the eyebrow center, and then the right thumb governs your right nostril. So
Mhm.
it releases and closes the right nostril, and the last two fingers of the right hand manipulate the flow of air on your left nostril. Okay? Yeah. So now you kind of gonna
It's
have
gonna
the
make me sneeze.
test. um, so now you've kind of got how we move. I'll show you one round and then we can do it together. So you're gonna breathe in from the
Excuse me.
left, bless you, and then you change, exhale the right, and then you inhale on the same side that you breathed out from, and then you change it, breathe out on the left. Okay? So keep your mouth closed. You want to be breathing through your nose only. Keep your back straight. Keep your face relaxed. And try to keep a gentle smile on your face. So nice and calming. Exhale completely on your left. Close your right nostril. And inhale left. Change. Exhale right. Inhale right. Change. Exhale left. Inhale left. Change. Exhale right. Inhale right. Good. Now you change and exhale on the left. Inhale left. Change. Exhale right. Excellent. Breathe in on your right. Change. Breathe out left. Breathe in left. Change. Breathe out right. Breathe in right. Change. Breathe out left. Breathe in left. Change. Exhale right. Inhale, same side. Change. Exhale the other nostril. Inhale, same side. Change. Exhale the other nostril. Inhale right. Change. Exhale left. Inhale left. Just feel the flow of energy. Change. Exhale right. Being with your breath. Breathing in on the right. Being aware of the sensations. Change. Exhale left. The breath out is warm. Breathe in. Feel the coolness in the left nostril. Change. Breathe out. Feel the warmth out the right nostril. Inhale. Feel the coolness up the right nostril. Change. Breathe out. Feel the warmth down the left nostril. Inhale. Change. Exhale. Inhale. change, exhale, inhale, change, exhale, inhale, change, exhale. Last round. Inhale up the left, change, exhale right, inhale up the right, change, exhale completely on your left side. Gently relax your hands. Take a few gentle breaths. And at your own time, you open your eyes. Do you feel good?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I've
So
got a little
just
bit
that.
of a cold, so that's why my nose is running.
No worries, no worries. You can always, you know, do this again and again, and you'll feel even the blockage. A lot of the time, one nostril dominates.
Mm.
So when one nostril is blocked, one nostril dominates. So when we do this again and again, what we're doing is we're creating a balance in the circulation between the nostrils. So it really helps to clear out your sinuses, but also equilibrate the energy flow from the
Yeah, I definitely feel a sense of inner calm.
yeah, it's highly like it brings your mind to a very meditative state, and it achieved so quickly. You feel much calmer, much clearer. You're out of your mind and really just feeling that gentle rhythm of the breath, which is in itself so restoring. So even those who have trouble sleeping because they're in bed, but their mind is racing and the thoughts keep coming. This really helps. Do this for 10 minutes before you go to bed, and you'll notice you're so much more relaxed and you can easily drift off to sleep.
Mm.
Do this in the middle of your day at your desk. It takes 8 minutes, and you'll just feel like you're so much more centered. You can focus at one thing at a time and get through what you need to do with a much more sense of ease and effortlessness. So, yeah, I love this. I do this multiple times a day, and I've just found that it really helps to kind of shake off that stress and connect me to a much more peaceful place where I can kind of operate from.
Mhm.
Mm. And then shall we move on to a little bit of neck and shoulders?
Yeah, I think just like a simple stretch that you can practice at your
Okay.
desk.
So with the neck and shoulders, everything around movement and tension is so connected to stress.
Mm.
When we don't notice the stress that we're holding on into our mind, then it calcifies and it comes and shows up on the level of the body as tension and stiffness.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is a very important distinction to make, and how the stress of the mind can turn into physical tension and stiffness. I mean, the WHO says 95% of illness today has a root in stress. Yeah. So if we don't want to feel ill, if we don't want to be inflicted by disease, then listen to the cues we're getting from the mind level, right? Before it manifests on a physical level.
Mhm.
So the way we can bridge mind and body
Yeah.
is the breath, because you noticed in those 8 minutes what it did, how we're able to switch off from the mind, become present to how we feel, clear in terms of our thought processes. And so the breath really helps bring a thread between body and mind. Yeah, because it keeps you at at the present moment, keeps you focused, and then you become aware of where the tension is even held. A lot of the time I see with my clients, they've suffered from tension for so long, but they normalized it. And they normalized it until they've got chronic back pain or until they're at a point where they're considering surgery. But had they not normalized it, had they had just a little bit more awareness or sensitivity to the body, we could have nipped it in the bud, and often we can work around movement, mindfulness to decondition that stress and bring them back to balance without the
Sure.
surgery at all. So everything that we're going to do when it comes to movement is centered around the breath. If you're doing the movement without the awareness of the breath, then you're foregoing 90% of the benefits of the
Right.
movement because it's a mindful practice.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I want you to always make sure that the breath is leading your movement and not that you're trying to breathe to catch up to your breath. Not that you're trying to breathe to catch up to your movement.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we'll do it first with the neck and then the shoulders. So very, very simple. I just want to do some rotations. So we're going to start with the chin to the chest, and that is when you've come to your full exhalation. And then we roll the head, and as you look up and back, that's when you're going to come to your full inhalation. And as you roll down back to your chest, you're completely exhaling. So when you're rolling up, you're breathing in. When you're rolling down, you're breathing out. Is that clear?
Mhm.
Okay. So when you're ready, just bring your chin down to your chest and very, very gently, with full awareness of the breath and of the body, inhale, rolling up, and exhale, rolling down. Inhale, let the movement be slow. If there's any area of stiffness, be gentle with yourself. Exhale, roll down. We hold so much tension around the neck, especially since nowadays we're all glued to our screens. So use this as an exercise of discovery to start noticing and becoming aware of where your tension is held. As you connect the movement with the breath, you're giving your body the permission to let go of the stress. Coming to full capacity, you're breathing in and breathe out. When you've got your chin to the chest, let's reverse the rotation, going in the opposite direction. Inhale up and exhale down. This way, the other side. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One final round. You want to aim to do 5 rounds clockwise and 5 rounds anti-clockwise. Deep, slow, relaxing breaths. And then when you've brought your chin down to the chest and completed that circle, just come back up to sitting. Yeah, so this is so simple,
Mm.
but you start to become aware, right? You don't even realize the back of the right side you're tense until you start to investigate a little and notice, hey, actually, this side feels so much different than the other side,
Mm.
right? So when we start to have that sense of curiosity and when we have that sense of awareness, only then can we do something about it. right?
Mm.
Only then can we slow down on that side, breathe a little deeper on that side, and really be gentle about releasing the stress that we're carrying.
That's
So
great.
I'm going to just adopt the same thing, and I'll just walk you through the basic guidelines. This is, again, something super simple and can be done literally anywhere. You're on a bus, you're at your desk, you're waiting in line. It doesn't matter. This is something so simple. It's not like you need to roll out your mat or find a gym in order to do these movements. It's just
Mm.
giving yourself that permission and that space in your mind to dedicate those 10 deep breaths, but how much lighter you feel for it, right? So, same thing here. We're going to roll up as you inhale and roll down as you exhale. Again, the shoulders and the neck is psychosomatically where we hold our stress and
Mm.
why there's so much tension and tightness around here. Yeah. So when the elbows are pointing to the floor, you breathe out and then you inhale to lift and exhale to lower. And just go with your own range of motion. Remember, there's no judgment, there's no comparison. It's a
Mm.
gentle awareness where you're being compassionate and you're curious and you're listening to the
Mhm.
cues of your body. Yes, so you just roll 5 times clockwise and then 5 times anti-clockwise.
Mhm.
And there you have it. Some very basic, simple tools. So simple, but so effective and so powerful when we are disciplined about acting upon it and practicing it on a daily basis.
Great. Thank you so much. That's very
No
valuable
problem.
and useful tips to have.
I'm
So
so glad I'm so glad to be here and to share this with you. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
yeah, I mean, it's something I'm very passionate about, like bringing about changes to companies, particularly startups and SMEs, who might want to start taking workplace wellness more seriously and take better care of their employees' well-being, because there's
Absolutely.
such a big impact on your business, on your team performance, and morale as well. So before I let you go, we're just going to quickly mention about your workshops, which you're offering in partnership with for teams for startups and SME teams up to 20 people. Can you tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about what they can expect from your workshops?
So, now is the time for change. We've noticed that our current predicament ha, has really had a serious deterrent on our health, on our mental health, on our emotional health. And so this is really, I would say, like Mother Nature's signal for us to open our eyes, become aware of what our priorities really are, and only when we can adopt sustainable changes, then we can drive growth, then we can drive a sense of success, personal and professionally. So I run a bunch of workplace wellness workshops,
Mm.
ranging from key strategies of how we can de-stress, how can we decondition stress from our day-to-day life, what habits to inculcate, how to change our thinking patterns, how the impact of technology as well, screen time, and how we can mitigate that or create a parameter for a connection back to our physical realm, and then also our digital space that we hold.
Mm.
We also talk about the relationship of how to eat healthy, and what that does to our energy, what that does to our mood, and so the connection between food and mood. And one of my favorite topics is really the breath, and how we can start to learn simple strategies to optimize our breath so that we can function at a much higher capacity energetically. As I said, if we're running on a tank half full, then we can expect to only go a certain distance. If every day we know how to refuel our tank, then imagine the distance we can travel. So to me, that is the compounding effect of the breath. We breathe, our whole life is between a breath in, as the first thing we do when we're born, and the last thing we do when we die is a breath out. So our whole life is compounded between a whole, thousands and thousands of breaths. So if we're able to learn exactly how to optimize it, then we're maximizing the life potential we have. We're maximizing our capabilities and our energy that drives us forward.
Great. Thank you so much, Neelam. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Most welcome. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm here to serve and to share to the corporate wellness community and to the individuals. So thank you so much for your time and your participation today. I really hope you enjoyed the techniques.
Thank you. Bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Take care. Bye.